Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, the 4th of August. You're tuned in to our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. I'm Mark Broom. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. Over 350 people are killed and hundreds more injured after a magnitude 6.1 earthquake strikes in southwest China. Rescue workers have been dispatched with tents, food and other supplies. President Park Geun-hye nominates an art professor and mass communications expert from Seoul's Hongik University as her new culture minister. If confirmed, the president's new-look cabinet will be complete. Plus, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon condemns an Israeli attack that killed 10 people at a UN-run school in Gaza as a moral outrage and a criminal act, as Israel declares a brief ceasefire. But our top story this morning, at least 367 people have been killed and almost 2,000 injured after a powerful earthquake struck China's southern Yunnan province on Sunday afternoon local time. The 6.1 magnitude quake struck the densely populated city of Jiutong, toppling buildings and damaging roads around that area. China's state-run Xinhua news agency says the earthquake was the strongest, in fact, to hit that region in 14 years. Rescue and search operations continue with over 2,500 troops dispatched to the worst-hit areas. They are carrying with them tents and food and other basic supplies. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon has offered his condolences and that of the world community and said the UN was ready to lend humanitarian assistance if required. Back here in Korea, and President Park Geun-hye has nominated a mass communications and design expert as her new culture minister. Kim Jong-deuk, a professor of the Visual Communication Design Department at Seoul's Hongik University, was named on Sunday. The presidential office cited Kim's experience and expertise in the arts and his leadership as qualities that would help him realise President Park's key state goal of cultural prosperity. Now, Sunday's nomination comes more than 2 weeks after the president's previous nominee withdrew amid allegations of perjury at his confirmation hearing. The recent nomination also comes after President Park named Hwang Woo-yea as her education minister. He'll also serve as Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and the confirmation of both Kim and Hwang would give President Park a complete set of members for her new cabinet. Korea and the United States will hold their second round of high-level talks this week on the transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul. Now, diplomatic sources say there are expectations of an outline of the timing and conditions for the OPCON transfer as the talks are taking place just 2 months ahead of the annual security consultative meeting between the two countries. Discussions are also expected to include an assessment of the South Korean military's response capability against North Korea's nuclear threats. The two-day talks begin on Wednesday in Washington, and the delegations will be led by Korea's Deputy Defense Minister Yoo Jae-sung and U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia, David Helvey. Now, the Korean government says it will publish a white paper on Korean women forced into sexual slavery by Japan during World War II, and it plans to have it published by the end of next year. The Ministry of Gender, Equality and Family says it will work with the Gungmin University Institute of Japanese Studies and the Songyungwan University Center for East Asian History. The white paper will update an interim report from dating back to 1992 on this issue and contain new study results and data collected to prove the sexual enslavement of Korean women by the Japanese military. The government plans to translate the white paper into various languages, including English, Chinese and Japanese, to hopefully raise international awareness about Japan's wartime atrocities. Now, Korea continues to be the nation with the largest income gap between men and women among advanced countries, and what makes this even worse is that it's showing no signs of improving at all, really, according to data released this Monday by the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. Korea's gender income gap in 2012 stood at 37%, the highest among 11 countries whose figures were compiled. That means Korean women are paid only 63% of what males earn on average. By country, Japan was second with a gender wage gap of 27%. This followed by the United States, Canada and the UK. The remaining 23 OECD members have yet to compile their figures. Korea has remained on top of this list for 13 straight years from the year 2000, with the gap over that time only narrowing by 3 percentage points over that cited period. Now, the summer holiday season is in full swing in Korea, with many Koreans going abroad, really, to escape the hot and steamy weather we are seeing in the country right now. And over the weekend, in fact, Incheon International Airport set a new record of visitors going in and out of the country. Our Son Jung-in has this report.
It's early in the morning, but the departure gate at Incheon International Airport is already crowded with vacationers leaving the country for their summer holidays. And fortunately for them, strong winds and rain brought by this season's typhoons didn't stop flights operating to their normal schedule.
I saw people waiting in long lines at the check-in counter. I couldn't wait that long, so I used the unmanned check-in system.
With the summer holiday season in full swing, the number of passengers using Incheon International Airport reached an all-time daily high over the weekend. It recorded a total of 158,000 passengers on Sunday, breaking the previous record of 156,000 set the previous week. Compared to the record daily number of tourists set last year, the figure represents a 10,000 increase. Experts attribute this recent trend to the surge in low-cost carriers and also to the strong local currency. To deal with the growing number of outbound travelers, the airport has stationed 6 additional security checkpoints and opened its outer parking lot. As the summer peak season continues until mid-August, officials plan to open check-in counters half an hour earlier at 6:30 a.m.
We estimate the daily number of passengers from airlines data to better prepare and provide the best service, especially during peak hours.
Officials advise passport holders to process their documents through the unmanned screening system to make the immigration procedure easier and less time-consuming. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
Now, on another airline-related story, the number of low-cost carriers in Korea has exploded over the past few years, but they've generally kept their services relatively short-haul, until now, that is, because Jin Air, one of those low-cost carriers, has announced that it will start flying a bit further than it used to, quite a lot further, really, than it used to. And Hwang Woo-yea explains why.
Competition in budget airline market is becoming fierce in Asia, and Korea is no exception. That's why low-cost carriers are looking for a new source of profits, and launching long-haul flight services may be an answer for some, like Jin Air.
The low-cost subsidiary of Korean Air is gearing up to offer non-stop flights to Hawaii next year. Budget airlines going long distances is still a difficult nut to crack, but Jin Air's senior vice president of PR, Emily Cho, says it's all about putting passengers at ease over safety issues.
Of course, before we can convince them, we have to make sure that our services are ready to deal with the long haul as well. Since it's something new, they have to get used to it. For example, our pilots need 1,000 hours of previous experience to even apply to Jin Air, which is the same as Korean Air. So that shows how much we are dedicated to our safety record.
Jin Air opened its doors for business in 2008, and it took 2 years before it began operating in the black. All 5 low-cost carriers in Korea, as of last year, are making profits, testimony to the continuing boom of the LCC market in Korea, but there's a catch.
Southwest or JetBlue. In the U.S., the main reason why they were able to grow this big is that they were using the minor airports because they have cheaper airport fees. But all the airlines are focused between Incheon Airport and Gimpo Airport in Seoul, for example. In China and Japan, because the population itself is big enough, there's a lot larger pool of those maintenance people or flight attendants.
In order to survive in this very tough market, Cho says Jin Air needs to make its name more known to potential customers overseas.
The Korean airlines have a very good reputation among the Chinese people, and we're hoping to kind of bond with them emotionally first, so they want to come to us first instead of us coming to them.
The competition in this market will only get worse, and successfully launching flights to Hawaii will be key in locking down sustainable growth for Jin Air. 나현경, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now it's time for us to take a look through some of the other international headlines we're following on this Monday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, standing by, as always, for us at the News Centre. Good morning to you, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark.
So developing this morning, while most of the world is incensed about yet another horrific attack on civilians at a school in Gaza, Israel has declared a 7-hour humanitarian ceasefire.
And unilaterally, it seems that according to the spokesman for the Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, who said the truce will begin at 10 a.m. local time. That's about 6 hours from now, but Hamas has said it has not agreed to that ceasefire. The announcement comes after Friday's 4-day ceasefire crumbled even as it was beginning. Not covered in this latest truce will be the southern town of Rafah, according to the IDF, where earlier an explosion near a UN school sheltering Palestinian refugees had killed at least 10 people. UN and Palestinian officials put the blame on Israeli airstrike. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon condemning the attacks as a moral outrage and a criminal act, while Israel's staunch ally, the U.S., said it was appalled by the disgraceful attack. As heavy fighting raged in parts of Gaza, broadcaster Al Jazeera reports Palestinians are struggling to reclaim the bodies buried under the rubble in Rafah. This as dozens of U.S. lawmakers are said to propose legislation on this Monday to boost U.S. armed support to Israel to defend itself from Hamas and other attacks. The health condition of an American doctor, Kent Brantley, who contracted Ebola while treating infected patients in Liberia, is said to be improving. News that his health condition was improving came from the director of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Tom Frieden, who appeared on network TV shows on Sunday to quell public concerns of a potential outbreak with the arrival of America's first known case of Ebola. A fellow aid worker also sickened by the viral hemorrhagic fever, Nancy Reipel, is set to return to the U.S. on that same medical plane on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the Ebola death toll has risen to 728, centered mostly in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, with a lowered mortality rate of 55%. The U.S. has announced it will send at least 50 public health experts within the next 30 days to West Africa to help fight the unprecedented outbreak of the virus so far without a cure. Meanwhile, in Iraq, up to 200,000 people have been forced to flee as the Islamic State militants have reportedly taken the town of Shinjar near Syria. That's where the United Nations says a humanitarian tragedy is unfolding, as a special envoy said many are running to exposed mountains. He expressed grave concern for the lack of basic needs, such as food, water, and medicine. Iraqi state television reported that the militants, formerly known as ISIL, also took control of the Mosul Dam on Sunday, which is Iraq's largest and provides much of the city's power. And finally, Israel has wiretapped U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry's phone while he was trying to broker peace talks between the Jewish state and Palestine. This according to a report by German weekly Der Spiegel. It said Israeli intelligence agencies listened in to Kerry's conversation via satellite and used the information in the negotiations that broke down after 9 months in April this year. It added that at least one other spy service monitored America's chief diplomat's calls. No comment so far from Washington or Jerusalem.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, The European Union also offers 50... The Korean government is aiming to lure more Chinese tourists to the country with a plan to ease visa entry requirements and establish medical centres for foreigners, and also resort complexes with casinos. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The number of Chinese people visiting Korea is on the rise, and the Korean government seems to want to keep it that way. Around 574,000 Chinese tourists visited Korea in June. That's almost half the total number of foreign tourists in the same period. The government says it will ease the visa application process and visa regulations for Chinese tourists by increasing the number of multiple entry visas so that more tourists can re-enter the country on a single visa. Authorities have also given the green light to the establishment of resort complexes with casinos and medical and education centers on the islands of Yeongjong-do and Songdo, which are near Incheon Airport, and Jeju Island in the south. The government is also allowing the establishment of for-profit hospitals and medical centers for foreigners in 8 free economic zones in Jeju Island in order to serve the rising number of medical tourists visiting the country. At least 10% of medical practitioners employed at the for-profit hospitals should have licenses from foreign countries, and the director of the hospital must be a foreign national. Similar deregulatory measures in the education and finance sectors will be laid out at a meeting later this month. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Now, in Korea, we've been seeing some really hot days over the last couple of weeks, with temperatures in the mid-30s many days, with very high humidity. And there's really little less satisfying than sitting down in front of an air conditioner to cool off on a day like that. But doctors are warning that that comfort could come at a price. Our Kim Hyun-bin explains why.
Lee Jae-hyo paid a visit to the doctor a couple weeks ago because he had lost his appetite and began to sweat more than he normally did, even while in cool places.
I had headaches, a fever, and was coughing a lot. I was in a bad state.
To his surprise, the doctor told him he had pneumonia. Pneumonia typically occurs during winter months, but can also strike in the summer. Data from a local hospital shows that the number of patients diagnosed with the lung infection during the months of July and August is nearly 70% of midwinter figures. Doctors say that when summer heat reaches its peak, the immune system can weaken. The frequent use of air conditioning can also lead to respiratory problems due to a greater exposure to bacteria.
When it is humid, like in monsoon season, your lungs become weaker and cannot properly emit the germs that enter your body.
High temperatures can also raise the risk of strokes. The number of stroke patients surpassed the 1.9 million mark in both July and August last year, figures that are similar to those seen in winter. This is because the stress caused by prolonged exposure to heat can increase blood pressure, which is bad news for sufferers of diabetes and high blood pressure.
When you are exposed to the heat for a long period of time, you can get dehydrated, which can affect cerebral blood flow.
Doctors recommend drinking plenty of water and to cut back on coffee and alcohol, which may cause dehydration. Regular exercise and 7 to 8 hours sleep can also ensure that your immune system remains strong during the dog days of summer. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off in the KLPGA as 19-year-old Kim Hyo-ju sets a new season prize record after winning the 2014 Hanwha Financial Classic. Now, Kim Hyo-ju, who despite the rainy weather conditions, shot 3 under on the day to finish off with 5 under par to win the Hanwha Financial Classic, winning her 3rd KLPGA Tour of the season. With her winning $300 million, won or a little less than $300,000 in prize money, she sets a new season record for prize money, earning a total of $770 million, won or roughly $750,000. Now, this breaks the record set by Jin Air back in 2008. And now moving over to volleyball with the 2014 World Grand Prix Volleyball Championships taking place. The South Korean women's team looked great after the first 2 wins over Thailand and Germany, but their match against Serbia on Sunday was a different story. Despite putting up a good fight, Korea just could not stop the Serbian offense, losing 3 sets to 1, 22-25, 24-26, 25-21, and 25-9. Despite the loss, world volleyball star Kim and Hwang puts up 21 attack points for Korea as she continues to shine even in the international matches. Meanwhile, Korea will face off against Serbia once again on August 17th. Now, despite the rain coming down in most parts of the nation, rain or shine, football does go on in the K-League Classic as Gyeongnam FC and FC Seoul drew 1-1 and Jeonbuk beats Jeonnam 2-0 during the Honam Derby. Meanwhile, let's take a look at another big match here. Suwon Samsung Blue Wings taking on the Pohang Steelers. Now, literally just right after the whistle blows, it takes just 44 seconds for the first goal to be scored as Santos sneaks one past the goalkeeper for an early 1-0 Suwon lead. 25th minute, Hwang Ji-soo, that's the equalizer there, and we're tied 1-1 going into the second half. But Suwon's offense unstoppable in the second half as Santos adds his second goal in the 59th minute, giving Suwon the 2-1 lead before Roger makes it 3-1 in the 86th minute of the match. Now time winding down as Kwon Chang-soo completes the crushing blow to the Pohang defense with one last goal in the 90th minute as Suwon crushes Pohang 4-1. Well, unlike football, you can't play baseball in the rain, so 3 of the games in the league were canceled due to the weather. But the Tusan Bears took on the Hanwha Eagles in Daejeon, so let's take a look at the highlights. Of course, going into the game here, first inning of the game, Kim Tae-gyun with an RBI single scores Chung Gun-woo, and Hanwha takes an early 1-0 lead. Third inning, Min Byung-hun with a sac fly to right scores Hug Young-min, and we're tied 1-1. Sixth inning, 2-man on, Choi In-sung deep to center field. Gone, or is it? After a video replay, the call stand, and the Hanwha Eagles take a 4-1 lead. Now, in the ninth inning, Yang Yi-ji would hit a solo shot to deep left, but no matter as the Hanwha Eagles take this game 4-2. And now finishing things off with the 2014 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland. The world's fastest man, Usain Bolt, is back after 11 months, winning his first race in his return. With Usain Bolt going into the race as the last runner in the 4x100-meter relay, the Jamaican relay team finishes with a final time of 37.58 seconds, setting a new event record. With the win, Usain Bolt completes his return with a win as he's expected to only compete in the relay races. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your weather updates. Well, the typhoon Nakri dissipated yesterday at about 3 p.m., but the torrential rain past last couple of days, it just soaked the southern parts of the Korean peninsula. Well, for today, we'll have lingering showers across the nation. 5 to 20 millimeters are expected for the upper provinces, whereas down south should see 10 to 40 millimeters of rain during the day, and the humidity level will remain quite high at about 90% here in the capital. So it's going to be a one sticky day under lots of clouds, with the high in Seoul will rise to 30, while Daegu will climb to 31, and Gwangju and Busan will have a daily high of 28 this afternoon. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will top out at 32 and 28 respectively. Dokdo should see highs of 27, while Mount Kumgang tops out at 23. Well, we have another typhoon on the way. Typhoon Halong will start to have an effect on the peninsula at the end of the week, and it's likely to hit the southern regions the most. And this is the weather outlook for here in Seoul. No significant rain is in store until Thursday, but it all depends on the path of the Typhoon Halong, so let's keep an eye on that. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Okay, well, that's all we have for now, but we will be back with more news at noon Korea time in about 90 minutes. Until then, goodbye.